I'd like to call the July 9th regular meeting of the Post Falls Planning and Zoning Commission to order. Would you please rise with me and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, just a reminder, please make sure that your phones are on silent, and if you do wish to speak, make sure that you fill out the paperwork at the podium in the back and turn that in. We'll get things going and start with roll call.
Carey. Here. Kimbal.
Here.
Davis.
Here.
Bishop.
Here.
Hampe. Here.
All right, and I believe at this time I will make the announcement just so that everyone is aware, and it is in the minutes, that Mr. Latham is not participating in this evening's meetings. So Commissioner Latham is actually doing a presentation with one of the public hearings, so therefore he is going to sit out of everything else. So just for transparency, so we're aware of that. That being said, any amendments to the agenda this evening?
There's none.
Okay. Any ceremonies, announcements, appointments, or presentations that we need to be aware of?
None either.
Okay. Other than the previously spoken situation with Mr. Latham, any other declaration of conflict?
No.
None.
Okay. Then we'll go ahead and move on to the consent calendar. Mr. Manley to present.
Yeah, item A is the minutes from the June 11th, 2019 meeting. Item B is the Beck Road Apartments Special Use Permit, file number use 2/2019, the reasoned decision. Item C is the reasoned decision for the Green Meadows Subdivision, file number SUBD 10/2019. Item D is the reasoned decision for the Berkshire Place Major Subdivision Amendment, file number SUBD 12/2019. And item E is the reasoned decision for Tullamore 8th Edition Subdivision and PUD Major Amendment, file number SUBD 9/2019 and PUD 3/2019.
All right. Thank you. Everybody have a chance to review those. Look for a motion.
I'll move to approve the consent calendar as presented.
I second.
Okay. It's been moved and seconded. Call for vote.
Hampe.
Yes.
Bishop.
Yes.
Davis.
Yes.
Kimbal.
Yes.
Carey.
Yes.
All right, so moved. That moves us to citizen issues. This section of the agenda is reserved for citizens wishing to address the commission on an issue that is not on the agenda. Also, please be aware, comments on issues that are planned for future meetings should be held for that meeting. Do we have anyone wishing to speak regarding citizen issues? None seen. We'll go ahead and move on. There is no unfinished or old business, correct?
That is correct.
All right, then this brings us to the majority of the evening, which is our public hearing section. We'll go ahead and open the Crown Enterprise Special Use Permit. Mr. Manley to present.
Good evening, Commissioners. John Manley, Planning Manager here with the City of Post Falls. Introducing case file use 3/2019, which is the Crown Enterprise Inc. Special Use Permit. The owner is Crown Enterprise, and their rep is Ryan Stipp, who is here this evening to represent the owners in that group. So the requested action is to amend the reasoned decision for file number use 4/2019 pertaining to the special use permit that affected the site, and it'll go into further detail on this request through this staff report. And this was presented before you January 8th, 2018. So what they're requesting is one of the conditions or modifications was they want to modify what's required a 6-foot-high CMU wall because they find it to be overly burdensome and beyond the minimum requirements of the Post Falls Municipal Code that would typically be for buffering neighboring residential development. Rather, they would like to utilize a 6-foot-high galvanized site obscuring fence. The applicant states that this would meet the minimum requirement due to the majority of the property owners north of Jacqueline Road is currently zoned CCS. Or near Jacqueline Road is CCS. The other is to modify the distance of the buffering on the north side of the lot. The intent is to retract the buffering to be opposite of the single-family development rather than the entire north side. So, and Exhibit A here kind of goes into more of details of what's being requested and what was originally approved. So on the left side of the screen in brown, that is the area of fencing being proposed. And in green, you see what was the area that had the original 6-foot CMU wall for the full extent of the north side of what you see hatched in red. That was the area that was pertaining to that use in 2018. And then the east side of this lot in green, you see the 6-foot high CMU wall there. Now it didn't go all the way down because there was 2 parcels. You see here parcel A and parcel B. Parcel A was for the trucking facility. Parcel B was where UPS was going to be located. So the condition was placed on adjacent to this single-family neighborhood and to the north, because at the time this was unknown and therefore placed to be the full extent. Since this reasoned decision in 2018, we do know that per this use, we just saw the reasoned decision this evening, there is a multifamily project for about 132 units planned at this location. So hence the request to retract this to mitigate maybe effects to the single-family neighborhood. Looking at zoning, you can see that to the north of Jacqueline, that is the CCS that got that special use permit. You can look to the east, and this in yellow is the single-family zoning district with the single-family residences. South of which is Expo Parkway, you can see this is where the UPS, and you have that CCS zone. So supposedly, that would be why parcel A was only required for that CMU wall. Here is the general site plan for that multifamily site to the north for your reference. You can see that they have some buildings along the perimeter. They have a central open space clubhouse for this project. So the review criteria that you guys considered as part of the original special use permit, this is the 4. I highlighted in bold the one that really is affected by this request. The first one, the second one, the fourth one is just as applicable to the original request as well as to this request. But the third one is for you to determine as the commission is whether the proposed use or mitigating measures and how they're compatible with health, safety, and the welfare of the public or the land uses in the vicinity. This was noticed to the following. We did hear from the police department. They came back as neutral. There are some parameters for you to kind of guide your conditions. They're kind of what you see here. 1 through 6 are what you're allowed to condition. If I can leave that up there just for a minute for you guys to kind of look at that. I believe that you were consistent with that in your prior conditions as well as however you may determine this evening. Once again, here's the site in question, and for those that don't know exactly where this is at, and I apologize for not covering this as part of the intro, you do have, this is out on West Post Falls, you got Celtice Way, you have I-90, Beck Road. Recently we just have a Maverick that was located off Beck, so it's just along the southeast corner of Beck and Jacqueline, or northeast of Expo and Beck, however you'd want to look at it. Do you have any questions for me regarding the proposal or the staff report?
What exactly was the fencing they're proposing to put up now instead of the block?
So the proposal was to put a galvanized fence and with site obscuring,
So chain link fence?
chain link with some site obscuring.
Okay, thank you.
Versus the CMU wall, correct.
So what is the minimum requirement then? If they're saying this is above and beyond what the minimum requirement would be?
Well, the minimum requirement between an industrial type use and a residential use would be a 25-foot landscape buffer, as well as a 6-foot fence, wall or berm combined. So what that means is you could have a 3-foot berm and a 3-foot fence, or a 6-foot fence, 6-foot berm. There's different ways you can, to create that 6-foot wall separating you and that use. There's also, I believe, I don't have it 100% memorized, but I believe for every 100 feet, there's 8 deciduous trees, 8 evergreen trees, and so many shrubs for every 100 feet of distance within that 25 feet.
Okay.
I'm kind of spitballing a little bit with that, but that's what I recollect.
So they're still, they would still meet the requirements without this block wall, without the block fence?
For as far as the spirit of the code and what the minimum
Right, yes,
requirements
yes,
are,
yes.
that would be correct outside of planting details.
Okay, okay.
Any other questions?
No?
Okay. Thank you, sir. Invite the applicant up.
Anything you want to leave up? Okay, go.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you very much for coming out. I guess I'll begin. I'm sorry, I didn't know if there was a format that I was expected to follow or not.
Only format we'd need is just to state your name and address.
Ryan Stipp, business address of 12225 Stevens Road in Warren, Michigan, 48089.
And the floor is all yours.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here, and again, I appreciate all your time this evening. So I think John did an excellent job of covering what we're attempting to address here and clarify in relation to some of the requirements that were placed upon our conditional use permit. It's really a matter of ensuring that we are protecting the corner of the residential use in the neighborhood there to the north. That's important to us, and certainly to the east as well, with the new development that I spent some time exploring earlier today. And we believe that this adjusted or amended proposal would adequately buffer both of those uses, and with the new information that I have now on what's occurring to the north there, it's not our belief that our amended proposal would really in any way adversely impact that development either. I guess if it would, maybe, are there any questions, I guess, that I could help answer on what it is that we're attempting to do here?
Any questions for?
So you're just asking to exchange a chain link fence instead of a block fence. Is that?
My understanding of the original decision was that there was to be a 6-foot high berm all along the entire northern edge of the property. On top of that 6-foot berm would also be a 6-foot high block wall for a total of a 12-foot high obstruction.
Okay.
And Our position is that we're certainly supportive of shielding it might be 200, 150, 200 feet of the residential there that would be the north east corner of the property. But we don't see much utility in extending that for the remainder of the lot line, property line there.
So there wouldn't be berming then? I guess that's my question.
Okay, yes, that is correct.
Okay, no berming, just the 6-foot fence instead of berming and the block fence?
That's correct.
Okay, that answers it for me.
Okay. Any other questions?
Yeah, I do. So I think, if I'm remembering correctly, the main reason for that berming and the 6-foot wall was to create a sound barrier.
And light.
And sound and light. And I think the idea, really the combination of the berm and the wall was to create a mass that will reflect sound. Do you have any evidence or a sound study or anything like that that would show that what you're proposing will do that?
Unfortunately, this time, I do not.
Okay.
Any other questions? No? None? Anything else for us?
That's, I'm trying to keep it simple.
Absolutely. No, I appreciate it. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Public comment.
We have one neutral.
One neutral, okay. Okay, we have one neutral wishing to speak, Sarah Mitchell. Sarah, come on up. If again, you'll state name and address, and then you'll have 4 minutes.
My name's Sarah Mitchell. My address is 414 North Almondwood in Post Falls, Idaho. And I guess I just have a question of what exactly is going to be, are those parking stalls up there for the big semi-trucks, or what's that going to be used along that northern fence?
So ideally, you can ask that question, then what we'll do is we'll give the applicant time to be able to
Okay.
come up for rebuttal to explain that.
The other thing I'm interested in knowing is what the hours of operation were going to be, because that was kind of why we wanted the sound barrier there, was because if it's in the middle of the night, that type of stuff. And if that's where the semis are parking, I would think that semis would have some sort of potential backup alarm. I don't know for sure. And I'm totally neutral because this doesn't truly affect my house. The other thing I'm interested in knowing is if Jacqueline's going to be like a no trucking road, so that way we could funnel them through Expo Parkway, the big semi trucks that come through. I didn't know if that was an option. I know that's not necessarily something that is part of this, but, and I think that was all I was really curious about, was what's on this map right here, this one right here,
Okay,
so, and how it was used.
okay. All right, perfect. Thank you very much. Warren, do we want to address, I know there was some discussion initially with Jacqueline Road and with Expo.
Yeah, that's reaching way back in my
Right.
think
my
it was
memory
that
bank.
we're gonna
The
use it.
engineering staff might know that better than I do,
Yes,
whether that's
actually,
designated or not.
applicant looks eager. Why don't you come back up for rebuttal and we can address those.
I think what I remember from that was that there was no approach onto Jacqueline.
Yeah.
But once the trucks get out onto a public street, it's a public street. so
Right.
You can't stop them from
Yeah.
driving down a public street.
It's correct that one of the restrictions was Jacqueline Road, so there would not be any truck ingress or egress onto Jacqueline as one of our conditions that we accept. It's not a route that would serve us any utility, as our really goal is to get to the expressway. And in fact, I don't see much use for, geez, now I'm getting turned around. Is Beck the, or Expo?
North-south.
So Beck's north-south and Expo's east-west. Expo really doesn't do us a lot of good either. As you see that both of our ingress and egress are there onto Expo. Beck.
I'm back.
Thank you.
And then two questions, and again, if you care to address them, was just the hours of operation and if indeed that was parking or how that looked.
And I do wish my operations representative was able to make it here today. I can say that typical hours of operation are normal business hours. There are, those do occasionally start early, but if that's, before 7 a.m., I couldn't speculate.
Okay.
And the other?
Parking.
Oh,
parking, yeah.
those are parking stalls.
Okay.
So you might even be able to argue that with parked trailers in the spots behind our fencing, that there's a certain additional level of buffering from the remainder of the site that is going to deflect sound and light as well.
Okay. All right. Any other questions? Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Do we have something else for this, or?
No, it's a
Okay.
different one.
All right. Questions? Any other questions? None? Okay, we'll go ahead and close it out. And I'll just open it up for general comment.
Well, I think when this came up before with us, our main thing is one thing we didn't get settled on a time frame as to what their hours were actually going to be. So there was some concern that there were going to be, uses after dark. It is going to be used for truck repair and maintenance, I believe, also. Truck movement in and out. And I think we went above and beyond because that we were trying to do something for the people who lived around it too, protect their property values. And I think that that's where we should stay. I think we owe it to the people around to stick with what our original approval was.
Ray?
With regards to the 25 feet, I really don't care if it's 25 feet or 10 feet or 2 feet, as long as they can maintain the height and the mass. And that was kind of the idea, was to make sure that they have the opportunity, or they provide the buffering and the mass that shields sound. Trees don't do it, shrubs don't do it. Chain link fence with privacy slats doesn't do it. It requires something of mass to create that barrier. And I don't think we've seen any evidence tonight that shows that they can meet the standard that provides the, how do I want to say it, the continuity or the compatibility with the adjacent existing residential uses that are going to be, affected by the noise. And I would fully expect, having not heard otherwise, that the shipping transportation transfer area that they will be working more than an single 8-hour shift or a 12-hour shift. I'm sure that it'd be ideally, if they're doing well, then it would be around the clock business. So I would expect that in order to keep compatibility between adjacent uses, that the sound buffering needs to be in place. So,
Sam?
I just see the requirements are the width of 25 feet, structures required, fence, wall, or berm. With that said, knowing now that we have multifamily to the direct north of the subject property, I think that the width and the fence needs to be extended across the north to consider the multifamily structures that are going to go in there, just to kind of have that protection for them as well.
So the way it was originally had presented without the changes.
Yeah, I mean, the fence, it doesn't specify what type of fence, and it says fence, wall, or berm. So if the fence is chain link, hurricane, with the pieces in there for privacy and to block the light, and they have that width of 25 feet across the north, then I think that meets the requirements.
Okay, Nancy?
I have a concern that we're by putting R1, butting it up to industrial, that really somebody's going to lose out, and so now we're going to make industrial meet a higher requirement because we've put R1 right up next to it, and the thing is that somebody's going to lose out. Either the industrial is going to lose out because it's going to have to meet a higher requirement. It's going to cost more money. It's going to cost more money for industrial businesses to come in when they're abutting R1 because they're going to have to make accommodations for the R1 that's next to them. And I think that's a concern. Maybe not. This isn't, this is just a small example of what could happen when we continue to put R1 in industrial, right smack square straight up against industrial. And I think that's why you try and have other things that buffer high-density multifamily, and that's what's meant to be there. But it doesn't look like we're doing a very good job of that. And I'm not criticizing staff or anyone. I mean, that's on us as well, because I think I have voted in some of this as well, and so I'm just seeing the effects of it now, and it looks like it's going to have effects on somebody or everybody in that area, and I'm concerned with that. I'm concerned with how other industrial companies will feel about coming in when they have to meet a higher standard. That concerns me. That said, of course, I still think, there's people living next to it. We do want to make some accommodations for them. I'm just a little nervous as to where that goes.
Yeah, I remember I think we can all agree, if we remember back in January when we went through this, we put quite a bit of time and energy into exploring what the options were, and I think we kind of came away going, okay, this buffer and the CMU wall was going to be a solution. I do get concerned because I agree with Ray in the sense of we know it's going to have high usage, and there is going to be a great deal of sound and light, and Nancy, I see your point, and I think that we want to make sure and take care of those individuals that are living around there, but as industry comes in, we have to be cautious of that. So, if someone wants to take a stab at making a motion.
Yeah, real quick,
Do it at this time.
clear up the record that it is CCS. It is zoned, it's commercial, not industrial. So according to the map on our staff report, industrial's to the west. So
The buffering goes by use, so
okay.
the buffering table goes by use, but yeah, you're correct. It is a CCS zone against a CCS zone to the north.
So it's kind of an industrial use in a CCS zone, and that's why we're here that's why it was a special use permit.
Correct.
Right.
Okay, that clears it up. Thank you. I'll shoot I'll take a shot at motion, if I can find the right. Let's see. I'm not seeing a file number.
We know what it is. You don't have to
All
worry
right.
about quoting it.
You just got to get all the numbers.
Yeah. So I would move to deny the request for reconsideration of the, it's USE-0004-2018. Deny the request to amend the reasoned decision, finding that they've not provided any evidence that they have met the requirements for sound buffering that would keep in harmony with the adjacent property uses.
I second.
Okay, got a motion and a second. Call for a vote.
Hampe,
Yes.
Bishop,
Yes.
Davis,
Yes.
Kimbal,
Yes.
Carey.
Yes.
All right. Moving on to second public hearing of the evening, we'll go ahead and open up the Landmark Place annexation. Jamie Hayes to present.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Jamie Hayes. I'm Planner 1 for the City of Post Falls. I'm here to present the Landmark Place Annexation, case file ANNX-3-2019. The owner is Rosa Sharon Enterprises, Inc., with the applicant being Ace Solutions. The Planning and Zoning Commission is being asked to review the annexation request of approximately 11 acres and to make a recommendation of the proposed single-family R1 residential zoning designation to City Council. As you can see, the subject site is hatched in red right here, the 11 acres. It is south of Interstate 90, and it is east of McGuire Road, which is a major collector. You have the Centennial Trail running just to the south of the subject site. It's currently vacant with no significant topology or vegetation issues. The water provider is designated as the future Post Falls Water District, and the sewer provider is the City of Post Falls, constructed but not put into service yet. This is the zoning map for this area. You can see that to the east we have in brown a residential mobile home park, and we have an SC3 zone in the light purple. To the south is Kootenai County land, and this land is currently zoned as high-density residential by Kootenai County. And then north across the highway, you have residential and industrial and commercial. Now, some of the zoning criteria that you are being asked to consider is whether it's consistent with the future land use map. I'm going to flick forward to this future land use map showing this whole entire area as designated as residential. Is it consistent with the goals and policies found in the comprehensive plan? Well, the comprehensive plan states that the City of Post Falls should desire a mix of residential uses at a mix of pricing, and that there should be everyday activities within walking distance of whatever proposal is being proposed. I'm going to go back just to show you that right here we have the Trailer Park Wave River access. Right here we have the Centennial Trail, and then there's Corbin Park to the south. Pardon me. And another criteria is that zoning is assigned following consideration of such items such as street classification. We know that it's a major collector. Traffic patterns, existing development. The existing development surrounding the whole entire proposal is residential. The future land use map, which I had shown you, community plans, and we know that there are no geographic or natural features of issue here. Some of the other criteria is that the commercial and high-density residential zoning is typically assigned along streets with higher road classifications. We're not discussing commercial or high-density residential zoning here. Limited or neighborhood commercial or lower density residential zoning is typically assigned for properties as they proceed further away from the higher intensity urban activities. Well, despite this being an R1 zone, we do have Interstate 90 running to the north. We have McGuire Road, which is the major collector, and then we have the Interstate 90 right-of-way to the north and the Centennial Trail right-of-way to the south. And as this is not an industrial zone, this is not one of the criteria that is important for this proposal. These are all of the agencies that were routed. Post Falls responded, saying that they remain neutral on the proposed annexation. And then once again, here is the subject site, the built environment around it, the surrounding uses, and I stand for any questions you might have about the staff report or the presentation.
Questions for staff?
No.
Okay.
We're good. Thank you. Go ahead and invite the applicant up.
Good evening. My name is Roger Glessner. I'm with ACE Solutions, and we represent the owners of this property. For some of you that may or may not know me, I've lived in this area most of my life, and I've been working in engineering, planning, and surveying for the last 20 years. So I'm pretty familiar with this area and what's going on here and some of the demands from the past and present that are going on in this area. So we thank you for the staff report. We do agree with the staff report. We have looked it over, and everything that the city is going to require if this property is annexed in, we do agree with. There are a few things that I would like to point out, though, or highlight. One of them is that currently in the zoning that it's in now, it is in a high-density zoning in Kootenai County. Prior to 2000, the year 2000, there was a proposal to develop this property, and there was a gravity sewer line put in. I don't know, I'm not clear if it was ever dedicated to the city of Post Falls. It does have the city of Post Falls caps on it, and that is there, and there was a lift station that was also put in. The lift station is being used by the mobile home park at this time. And if this gets annexed in, we would go in and look at the sewer and bring it up to quality so that the city could accept it. And so we have sewer in place if it does get annexed in, and one of the other requirements is water for the area. And right now, we can't meet fire flow in that area. We have a dead-end water main there. So the city has, one of their requirements is that we would loop a water line underneath the freeway and over into that area so that we could provide fire flow, not only for the development, but we believe it'll enhance the whole area as far as that goes. One of the other things too would be a dedication of right-of-way and easement on McGuire Road. And we are aware of that, along with half-street improvements, which would more than likely be a widening of the road, curb, gutter, stormwater treatment swell, and probably either a sidewalk or a multi-use path. We believe that the residential zone that we're requesting, in this case the R1, is, it is far less dense than the current zoning that is there. We could ask for a higher density, but we don't believe that that would be compatible with the area because of the residential developments that are around it and the uses that are around it. The current zoning is approximately 1 unit per 3,000 square feet, and with the city of Post Falls zoning, it's about half of that in density. So, what we want to do here is we want to create a nice residential, medium density or low density residential subdivision, and that would be compatible with the area. One of the other attributes to this property is that it is adjacent to the Centennial Trail. And so once annexed in, we would propose some open space that would give the residents within this annexation some access to the Centennial Trail, along with the multi-use path that would be built along McGuire Road, would help some of the other people in the area also get down to the Centennial Trail. There is a property here. There is a lot south there. Can I point with this, or yeah? Right here. The owner also owns this lot right down here. It is not part of the annexation request, but it would be important to this annexation because we would run a private gated emergency access road through there. And we've talked to the Friends of the Trails and the City of Post Falls and Emergency Services, and they agree that we could run a road across there for emergency access, only it would be gated. Now, currently, the property is unused, with the exception of ATVs and UTVs and occasional people in the middle of the night parking cars. You know, we see fast food, garbage there, we see alcohol containers, stuff like that. And so by developing this, you know, we'll hopefully get rid of most of that or all of that. In addition, the ATVs and UTVs in the area, they cut across the property and they continue east along the Centennial Trail. And I don't believe that the City of Post Falls or anybody really wants that access there. So if this gets annexed in and developed, we'd be able to stop that type of use in that area. I believe that's it, if anybody has any questions.
Questions for applicant? No questions? Okay, thank you. Appreciate it. Public comment.
One in opposition.
One in opposition, okay. One in opposition and not sure. Is it Quinta Cures? Do you wish to speak? Okay, come on up. Again, just state name and address, and you have 4 minutes. And again, like I always do, if I butcher someone's name, I apologize. It's not personal. It's just, sorry.
You're not the first.
Okay.
Name is Ketta Kurz, address is 311 South McGuire, Post Falls. I received this notice in the mail for the hearing, and I am on McGuire. Company Ace, whom owns this parcel or wants to buy it, I wasn't quite clear on that. He mentioned in there that one home per 3,000 square feet. I believe an acre is 43,000 or 4,300 something, so we're looking at more than 22 homes in that area, if that's correct. I had a question about that. He mentioned also that bringing the water over. Yes, I've been there for years, and I had remembered my neighbor wanted to possibly develop his parcel of 5 acres into 4 lots, but he wasn't able to get the water over, so fortunately that fell out. I see the cost in bringing the water over huge. Going under the freeway, tunneling under to get over would be wrong for us taxpayers to have to be a part of that. I don't agree with that. The area there is being used for ATVs, walkers. I walk that every day. It's got minimal garbage, minimal drinking. The area is kept well. I have pretty much neighborhood friends that walk that often. It's a good way to get off the Centennial Trail because it is used, as you know, for transportation, for recreation. It runs 37 miles from Spokane into Post Falls. The ATV path where they're proposing to put these homes would just interfere with the traffic that goes there now. I'm sorry, I lost the gentleman. You, sir. Yes. I feel that this would just interfere with the traffic that's being utilized and benefited from the trail, because we do go into the dirted area to free
Excuse
up
me,
the-
ma'am. Could you direct your comments to the commission, please?
Sorry.
And then, yeah, applicant will come up and rebut for
Okay,
rebuttal
gotcha.
afterwards. Yep, thank you.
Just that area, again, is being used in a good way. I don't feel it's a negative. I can't think of my words, a little nervous, but other than that, I feel that the zoning for this would be wrong. I'm completely against it, and I know the people in the area there are, enjoy it quite often. So, and again, bringing in 22 homes or more to that area, I feel it's about the money to get the water there. It's again about money, you know, selling the land. bringing more people. It's going to cause more congestion in that area. Yes, the mobile home park does offer access, and yes, there is a sportsman access further down on Breezy Way, but the traffic that comes by already is abundant, and by adding in more homes to encourage more, I don't see how that's going to be fire safe. Issues or concerns or hazards that could occur, I don't see how people can get out of there quickly, because the traffic coming in from all of those homes and those 4 people per home, plus all the residents that are back in there, I see no positive to this particular proposal.
Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate the time. That opportunity for rebuttal. Applicant?
Yes, the reference to 1 unit per 3,000 square feet is what the current zoning is. And the zoning that we would be requesting, if annexed into the city, would be roughly 1 unit per 8,200 square feet. And so the density would be less than half. So, and I think we found our ATV, UTV users. And so, talking with the city, they have indicated, and the Friends of the Trails, they have indicated that that there is a problem with the ATVs and UTVs going down along the Centennial Trail as they travel east. And one of the access points is off of McGuire going through the property. The other access point is through the owner's lot off of Lundy. And so by annexing this into the city, we would help curb that. To us and to the city seems like it's a plus, not a negative for the area. And then again, there was some mention of water, and there is sufficient water there at this time, but it is a dead end run, and so I think that the fire flow in the area is at a minimum now. And by us bringing in a loop water system through there, that would enhance that in the area. We are aware of the costs that would go in there, and I don't believe that would be on the taxpayers. Thank you.
Okay. Any questions? Other questions?
No.
Nope. Thank you. Questions for staff?
No, I don't think so.
None? Okay. Go ahead and close it out and open it up. Anybody have anything to share? Nancy?
I was just looking at the map here a little more as we went along. I think that since it is already, it's in the county obviously now, and that's a little different, but it does have a much denser zoning right now than if we were to take it into the city, and it would have 5 per acre at that time, which would probably be somewhere around 54, 55 units as a max, which is definitely better than the higher density. For that reason, I like that part of it, certainly. So,
Sam?
I agree with that. The positives are less number of houses. I think it'll be nice for the future homeowners to be able to have that access to the Centennial Trail. That'd be nice for the homeowners. I think the burden of traffic is going to be mostly on them. They're the ones that are going to be coming out of that neighborhood, either going down River Bend or up to Saltese out of that neighborhood. So but yeah, I think I agree and like the project.
Ray?
It's an awkward piece of property.
Agreed.
Really, really awkward. And so R1 is probably is absolutely the most appropriate given the context of the area, where it is, what the existing built condition is, and I would support annexation and R1 zoning. I think it meets the requirements of the comprehensive plan, and it checks the boxes required for annexation.
Vicki?
I agree. I think R1 would be the best. That it is a very strange piece of property. And also, it is currently private property, so it's not part of the trail system and shouldn't even be being used now for ATV use or anything. I mean, it's personal property. So yes, I think that R1 would be the best.
Well, with the burden of the cost of the water coming from the individual developing that piece, and the fact is, I think we've seen multiple, pieces of undeveloped land that have been used for something that they weren't really supposed to be used for. It's unfortunate that the ATV trails and things would go away, but that's not what it's there for. So it looks like a good fit. That being said, I'd entertain a motion if anybody wants to throw one out.
Okay, I move to approve, Landmark Place Annexation, ANNX-0003-2019 with the R1 zoning and subject to items 1 through 5 noted in the staff report.
A second.
Motion and second. Call for a vote.
Carey,
Yes.
Kimbal,
Yes.
Davis,
Yes.
Bishop,
Yes.
Hampe,
Yes.
So moved. That brings us to the third public hearing of the evening. We'll go ahead and open up the Nelson Williams annexation. Ethan, to present.
Good evening, Commissioners. Ethan Porter, planner with the City of Post Falls. I'm here to present case file ANNX-5-2019, which is a Nelson Williams annexation. Here the owners, in your staff report, you'll see there's two. Recently, it's been purchased by Dean Hardwick, who is now the current owner. And the applicant for this annexation is Mark Latham. The requested action tonight is the Planning and Zoning Commission to be asked to review the annexation request of approximately 1.04 acres and to make a recommendation of the proposed Community Commercial Services CCS zoning designation to City Council. Here you'll see in the red hatch the project location here. It's right along Mullen Avenue and Highway 41 there. Across the Mullen Avenue, you have vacant commercial land, and then there's also single-family residential to the northwest, and then it's also surrounded by commercial services here. And I'll go into a little more detail with the zoning map as well. So the current land use is residential homes. There's 2 parcels on them. They were single-family homes, and Dean Hardwick, like I mentioned, purchased them. They are in the county. And the physical characteristics of this, the 2 parcels there's no significant topography or vegetation issues that are there. The water and sewer are both provided by the City of Post Falls. So here is the zoning map. You can see surrounding the project location is CCS zoning, and then to across the way from Mullen Avenue, you can see the vacant CCS land, and then to the northwest, the single-family homes, which is R2 for the darker yellow, and then R1 as the lighter yellow. Looking at the zone change criteria for being consistent with the future land use map, I'll show in the next slide the consistency with that as far as designation of CCS. The next zone change criteria, looking at the goals and policies being consistent with the comprehensive plan. For this section, the comprehensive plan wants to look at the vacant and the infill for the county pockets, and so this is primarily an infill of a county pocket that's within the City of Post Falls. The next zoning criteria would basically have no negative impacts to traffic patterns or existing development around or any future land uses or adjacent land uses as well. And there would not be, like I said, any geographic or natural issues with this site. Looking at the future land use designation, you can see here as the black hatch mark, there is the zoning or the designation of CCS zone for that site. So the fourth zone change criteria we're looking at is commercial and high-density residential zoning within, or just typically assigned along streets with high road classifications. And so looking back here, you have Mullen Avenue, which is a minor arterial going east and west, and then north and south for Highway 41 is a principal arterial. So that is being pretty compatible with that, as well as the surrounding uses of other commercial services and land uses. Looking at limited or neighborhood commercial and lower density residential zoning, since this is not any of those, then this zoning change criteria would not be applicable, as well as the industrial zoning zone change criteria as well, since this is a CCS zone proposal. Here's the agencies that was routed. And then the responses we got from Post Falls Police Department, they remain neutral in the project. And then Kootenai County Fire and Rescue also remains neutral. And if you guys have any further questions, I will answer them. If you need.
Questions at all?
No.
Nope. Sure. This time we'll invite the applicant up.
Good evening. Thank you for letting me speak. Mark Latham, 950 South Carpenter Loop, Post Falls. It's nice to see the fronts here of your faces instead of the sides. Ethan touched on about everything. It's pretty straightforward. It is an annexation that's completely surrounded by the city of Post Falls, so it's a pocket, as we call it. I think we've coined that or something. There's a few of them around there, and I think that's as good of any of a reason to annex it into the city. But the other three, so that's that infill issue. I think that's the number one. It's an annexation that we would want to bring it in as what the surrounding zoning is, which is CCS. So that makes a lot of logic there. The future land use, as Ethan mentioned, is CCS. And there isn't much of any residential. There is that R2 kind of kitty corner across the road. But that's a very busy road, and that doesn't, in my mind, that doesn't have much of any kind of connectivity in terms of being adjacent to any residential use. Mullen is a very busy road, and this is a perfectly good application, in my opinion, for a commercial use. And I know it's not the part of the discussion about the annexation, but I did want to touch on the project just a little bit. Dean and his son Paul Hardwick are here this evening, and they're the owners. And they'd like to bring in a really unique retail establishment to this town, which is exciting. It's exciting for me to work on as an architect, but also because I live here, and it's nice. It'll be nice to see it in this town. It's not a franchise or a chain. It's a second or third going on third generation owned. Fourth, Paul, I'm sorry. Generation-owned family business out of Seattle that's relocating here. They're single, one and only establishment, so that's really neat. And I did want to just touch on that, knowing full well I sit up there that has nothing to do with the annexation, but if anybody was curious about that, just to introduce them this evening, since they made it out from Seattle, made the trip out, and Neil, the contractor, is here also. So we're excited about doing this and getting started on this project with a successful vote or an annexation. But yeah, the retail establishment is, in our world, in the 21st century, retail is a challenge, but it's a high-end, high-quality product. And we're starting to see a lot of that in this town, and that's exciting, of people manufacturing nice things and selling nice things. And so I think that's something that, we can get excited and be proud of. So just touching on that, but other than that, I just respectfully ask for you to consider this as an annexation into the city of Post Falls. If you have any questions, holler.
Questions for applicant at all?
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you
Appreciate
very
it.
much. I was going to say, you don't have to run. You're fine. We will wait for you. Yeah, but we don't have any other public comment, just this, okay? I was going to say, if you want to make your way over.
Thank you.
In favor wishing to speak, Christina Malm, go ahead, state your name, address, and you have 4 minutes.
Hi, I'm Christina Malm, and we live at 2402 East Warbler Lane in the city of Post Falls. I'm strongly in favor of your project. I'm aware of the business, but even more so, I walked this route to my house 2 weeks ago, and that portion of the property has no sidewalk. There's no way for pedestrians to move along that side of Mullen, and there's really no reason you can't be on the other side of Mullen either. And so just from purely a zoning standpoint, this has been one of my things. I've been doing a lot of walking this summer, and you've got sidewalk, and then it stops. And then you've got to go in the road, and then you've got a piece of sidewalk, and then the road changes. And just purely from the zoning, I think it's really great to do that, to bring it in, annex it, and then have it as a commercial business. It's a perfect area for commercial. I mean, there's so much fun stuff going on down there, and I enjoy seeing this development.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I believe that was it for public hearing comments. Mr. Latham, no need for rebuttal unless there's anything else to add. You have something to add.
I'm here to speak in, Scott MacArthur with H2 Engineering couldn't make it tonight, but he's already kind of on board with this project, and he understands the connectivity of that. And we were kind of chuckling about that at the coffee shop there. It starts and it stops and starts, and that's been the story at Mullen for a long time. And I think ultimately it will all connect together. So he's been working with city staff and engineering on I think there's like an additional 4 foot that has to come towards the property line. It's not my world of things. I deal with the building, but the right-of-way improvements will all be enhanced, and they will connect and hopefully, I think, look pretty seamless from east to west, west to east. So that would be part of but that's further down the road as part of the development requirements when it goes in for permitting. So
okay, thank you, sir. All right, any questions for staff or anyone else before we close this out?
Nope.
No? Okay.
Nope.
Go ahead and close it out. Anybody?
It's a perfect fit there. I mean, CCS is what it needs to be. Couldn't really put anything else in there.
Yeah,
I agree. I think it's a win for the city and a win for the citizens and consumers. So welcome to Post Falls.
Yeah, I think it worked. It meets the requirements of the comp plan map, and it's nice to see these little pockets, the awkward little pockets in Post Falls start to come in. It's fantastic, and see development along that corridor is good. So.
Okay, that being said, I'd entertain a motion. From anyone.
Okay. I move that we approve the Nelson Williams annexation ANNX 0005-2019 with a CCS zoning.
I would love to second that.
Okay, we've had a motion, seconded. Call for vote.
Hampe,
Yes.
Bishop,
Yes.
Davis,
Yes.
Kimbal,
Yes.
Carey.
Yes. And I got to say, I just read something about their store, and it sounded pretty interesting. When I saw the name, I went, I read about that.
All right, so that brings us to the last public hearing, excuse me, of the evening. So we'll go ahead and open up the Prairie and Spokane annexation. Mr. Manley to present.
Yeah, so the Prairie Spokane annexation, case file ANNX 4 2019. City staff is presenting this on behalf for the city of Post Falls, or the owner of this property. The Planning and Zoning Commission, you're being asked to review and approve the proposed R1 zoning designation for this 1 acre lot owned by the city to city council. What you see here is the approximate location of this 1 acre site. You have Prairie Avenue and you have Spokane Street. Prairie runs east-west, Spokane's north-south. The purpose of this acquisition was to adjust and kind of correct some of this alignment issues for this development. And so this is why we're here, is to ultimately develop this as an amenity for Post Falls. Currently, the current land use was a residential home, but it's been recently torn down and has been appropriately mitigated. Physical characteristics, there's none really on it. No vegetative, no topographical type issues. There is one pre-existing shop on this lot that will be addressed as part of the project going forward. The water provider would be the East Green Acres Irrigation, with sewer being provided by the City of Post Falls, if development ever required any sort of sewer services or water. So, looking at zoning in the area, you have to the north of this, northwest, that's the Crown Point project, which is all smart code. The darker purple is your SC4, the multifamily project going in at this location. You have everything south of Prairie Avenue is your single family R1. Staff did ponder different zones on this. One could argue, limited commercial maybe, but when you look at the proximity to that intersection and the activity, that just staff more or less thought that R1 would be the simplest for this, and it would blend in to the area, especially since the goal for Post Falls isn't to develop this with any sort of development. Once again, is to provide some sort of amenity, be it maybe some sort of park or a parking area or something down the road for transit. We don't know what that's going to be, but we can turn that into a positive down the road, as well as correct, like I said, some of the safety issues with connecting Spokane Street. So looking at the zone change criteria for this, you got consistent with the future land use map as being the first criteria, consistent with the goals and policies found in the comp plan, of which both of those you can see here on the future land use map is designated as residential. Therefore, once again, a reason for just proposing residential on this for now. Goals and policies, there's more of a detailed explanation in the staff report that kind of goes into, where exactly. But once again, this is an infill pocket, so we get to close out an infill pocket, clean up some of the pedestrian connectivity, and improve this corridor. Looking at the items such as street classifications, traffic patterns, existing development, future land uses, community plans. Already addressed the geographical and natural features. There's no real community plans for this area. Existing developments, all R1 to the south, so we're proposing the zoning consistent. There's nothing about this that would impede the functionality of the street classifications or traffic patterns. In fact, it's going to be correcting a matter more than anything else. Fourth one, commercial and high density residential zoning. We're not applying that. This really isn't applicable. Limited or neighborhood commercial and lower density is typically assigned for properties as they proceed farther away from higher intense urban areas. One could argue down the road, this may be, about 5-lane road on Prairie, but once again, it's more or less probably going to be a public facility there than anything else. Industrial zoning, that's not applicable to this request. The agencies that were routed, as you see here, heard from the Post Falls Police Department, and their only comment is they remain neutral. So do you have any comments for me as staff and applicant?
So I guess, John, what you're saying is the city owns a piece of property and the city wants to bring it into the city.
More or less, yeah.
Okay, I was trying to understand that word.
Makes sense now.
Thank you.
Okay, any
City-owned
questions
county
for
property.
staff/applicant?
Our role here is just, to look at the zoning, make sure that it makes sense
Right.
going forward as it goes to city council for their.
This is just almost unrelated, but will the sewer connect there, and will Grayling Estates the lift stations there go away? As part of any land development right there?
I'll actually call up Rob Paulus so he can speak to that more directly.
Robert Paulus, Assistant City Engineer. Commissioner Kimbal, that's an old project of yours, the Grayling Estates lift station. The City of Post Falls is moving through some updates to their impact fees, and on that is some capital improvement plans for the roadways, which would realign Spokane and Prairie intersection. Also, along with that, our Water Reclamation Department is anticipating to make a final connection of sanitary sewer, which would allow for the vacation and removal of the Grayling Estates lift station, along with the Prairie Falls 2 lift station about, what is that, half a mile to the east. There's a lot going on, but that would allow for some improvements to that area for both sewer and transportation.
I will say it's about dang time. I know your Water Reclamation Department's saying the same thing.
Yeah, that was a temporary lift station, and temporary in this case was almost 20 years.
Yeah.
All right, thank you, sir. Rob, we were going to get you up here at least once tonight. Any other questions? No?
Nope.
Thank you, sir. I believe we have no public comment.
No.
All right. Any other questions, anything to add before we close it out? None being seen, we'll close it out. I think it's pretty simple.
Yeah.
Unless somebody has something to add, we'll call for a motion.
Okay. I will move to approve the Prairie and Spokane Street annexation, ANNX-0004-2019, with a zoning designation of R1.
Second.
Okay, there's been a motion and a second. Call for a vote.
Carey?
Yes.
Kimball?
Yes.
Davis?
Yes.
Bishop?
Yes.
Yes.
So moved. All right, that brings us to new business. I believe we have no new business this evening.
There's none.
But next up on the agenda is administrative staff report. I believe we have a demographic analysis and building report. Jamie and Ethan both will be presenting.
Bear with me for a moment. Once again, good evening, Commissioners. My name is Jamie Hayes, planner for the City of Post Falls, and Ethan and myself are going to be jointly doing a presentation. Go ahead. Introduce yourself.
Yes, I'm Ethan Porter, as you know. So.
Hi, Ethan.
Sorry to make that awkward. This is awkward. So we are presenting on the 2019 population and projection, future population, and 2019 semi-annual building report. Let me start with, this is informative only. A reasoned decision is not going to be required for this. This is just to fill you in on what's been going on. The purpose of the 2019 population estimated future projection memo is to inform you of the changes in population and housing in Post Falls from 2018 to 2019. This information is based on the recent single-family and multifamily residential permits that have been issued. Post Falls has had an estimated population of 35,000 roughly in 2018, and has grown to 36,747 in 2019. The result of this is 1,740 more people to the area. This translates into about a 4.97% annual growth rate from 2018. Currently, the average annual growth rate from 2010 is approximately 3.25. Post Falls may have an annual growth rate for 2019 between 7 and 9%, increasing the average annual growth rate between 3.6 and 3.8%. Post Falls will exceed a population of 40,000 by 2021. If county islands were included in this, it could be roughly estimated to be around 50,000 people. This is a graph that was produced showing you, it might be a little bit hard to see, but the years are on the bottom and the amount of people are running vertical. And that shows you around 2021 that we are reaching 40,000 people estimated to. With increasing populations, there's also an increased demand for housing. The result of this is 290 new single-family residents and 538 multifamily units for the 2018 development season. Individuals residing in multifamily housing Post Falls is approximately 24.74%, while the national average for multifamily housing is about 39%. The vacancy rate for multifamily in Post Falls is currently 2%. A flat rate vacancy has been estimated to be 4.5% by Federal Home Loan Mortgage Corporation, Freddie Mac. And this just is from the KMPO reports that we get every February showing the market vacancy rate at 2% right here. The median household income in Post Falls as of 2017 is estimated to be a little over $50,000. Regionally, the average rent for a two-bedroom apartment is $850, necessitating approximately $34,000 for an annual income, or in our case, 2.3 full-time jobs at the 2019 minimum wage of $7.25 per hour. Zillow estimates that the average home value in Post Falls to be around $288,000, with a median value of over $315,000, with an appreciation rate of 11.5% over the last year. This coming up year, it's estimated to be about 5%, which makes a total of 16.5% of appreciation over the last 2 years. During the past 3 years, the cost to own a home has outweighed the cost to rent, even though the cost to rent has increased nationally by roughly 35% since 2008. This analysis estimates that the Post Falls population will reach 98,000 plus by 2040. A population of this size will require an estimated 24,000 housing units, with at least almost 6,000 of them being multifamily products.
As Jamie mentioned before, this is, information only, basically to kind of let you guys know. And last year it was the population projection that was only presented, and we're looking at expanding and including more information to kind of give an overall sight of what's going on with the city, kind of give you some numbers and to look at that. And so here's this report, basically a table on the dwelling units. You can see here for the 2010 to 2020 decade time frame, we're looking at a peak of 828 dwelling units per year, and that happened in 2018. And then into 2000 to 2010 kind of decade time frame, there was a peak of 712 dwelling units per year during the year of 2004. You can see that highlighted here in the red is the recession, the 5-year recession, 2008-2013. You can see how low amount of dwelling units we had for that time frame. Looking as well for 2000 to 2010 time frame, you can see there's roughly an average of 400 to possibly 500 dwelling units per year, and then in 2010 to 2020-ish time frame, we're looking at around 500 to 600. So it is increasing for dwelling units per year. That it can be shown there. Here we're seeing our permit valuations and the fee valuations for the projects. Again, 2008 is here, and then 2013 is here. And during that recession time, dwelling units were down in count as well as valuation of the projects. And so, as you get out of the recession and everything goes up in price, as you can see here, towards 2019. Looking at the total valuation cost from 2001 to 2010, you're about 837 million, just over. And then from 2011 to 2020, you're looking at an estimated of about just over $1 billion. And so that's what the conservative kind of estimation that the staff put together and projected out for that 2020 timeframe. And then looking at 2008, 2013, there was a total valuation cost of $322 million. So that kind of gives you some figures and understanding of how things are fluctuating through those 2-decade periods and kind of just in general. So up until May of this year, there have been about 607 dwelling units, which equates to approximately 1,500 people being added to Post Falls in just the first 5 months of 2019. It is highly likely that Post Falls may add over 1,000 dwelling units just for this year alone, since it's not over yet, obviously. And looking back here, you can see here's our 607 for 2019 up to May of this year. So that kind of puts it in perspective a little bit for you. And with that, any questions or?
Questions or comments? I would say, first off, thank you guys for putting that together and getting it in front of us. I think it's some amazing information.
Yeah, very informative. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
I think your spreadsheet where it shows single family and multifamily, and if you look at the single family in 2003, 4, 5s versus what we have in 16, 17, 18, they're almost mirror images. Very, very similar. But the big kicker is the multifamily. How that's just become so popular. That it's as a place to live. Yeah.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We
Thank
greatly
you.
appreciate it. So that moves us to commission comments. Anyone, anything to share? Anything for the good of the order? Nugget of wisdom to leave on? Nothing.
Don't hurt yourself.
All right. Look for a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.